you, Jamie. Thank you for having me in this webinar. The discussions very interesting, very well connected to the technical assistance and capacity development agenda that we have been delivering to the membership at the IMF. So I would like to share a single slide with a diagram that we use at the IMF, and I think that will help us to guide my comments and to link with the previous presentations. If you allow me, should be there. Can you see?
Perfect. That's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah. So on the left hand side of the diagram, we have a pyramid where we try to elaborate and describe what we call key enablers of fiscal decentralization from a PFM perspective, which are basically the clarity of expenditure assignment, the clarity of revenue assignment to subnationals, and the third phase of the pyramid will be coordination between different levels of government. And we just heard from Nepal and Bangladesh, for example, issues related to unfunded mandates in terms of responsibilities devoted to subnational governments, or volatility of transfers from central administration to subnational governments that are issues to be addressed. And indeed, these are very detrimental to the proper function of fiscal decentralization and the rollout of the PFM system in terms of coordination between different levels of government. This topic on coordination particularly materializes on the PFM cycle that we can see on the right-hand side of the slide. So basically, we have been advising countries that the fiscal decentralization has to be implemented in a way that links very well to the rollout of PFM reforms in order to ensure the coordination through all the stages of the PFM cycle between the different levels of government. So we're talking about fiscal policy formulation, budget preparation, budget execution, reporting, accounting, and auditing, which are the core PFM functions within the PFM cycle. And we heard from the two country case that there are gaps on many of those functions. So for example, from Nepal, we had the feedback that they are still facing difficulties to connect the budgets at the subnational level into to the sector priorities or national priorities. That is an issue that comes on the fiscal policy formulation, for example. We heard from Bangladesh that they're still trying to roll out harmonize a chart of accounts to be applied overall to the subnational governments in order to improve the reporting and accounting capabilities and enable consolidation of financial information throughout all levels of governments to achieve the general government type of perspective, for example. We also learned from Bangladesh that there are issues related to the legal framework on the auditing frequency. That's another gap that potentially has to be addressed on reform agenda of the whole PFM cycle connect to the fiscal decentralization implementation. So basically, the main recommendation from our advice, and that's where we try to support the membership in identifying those gaps on the PFM cycle that will be more critical to ensure a proper functioning of the whole fiscal decentralization process. And indeed, the PFA assessment is one of the most, if not the most important tool to come up with this diagnosis and identify very clear where and what are the gaps that could be addressed in the short, medium, and long term. So just to give you an example, for example, we can talk about basic reforms that will come first in terms of ensuring that the annual budget process works properly in all levels of government by having a very clear budget calendar. The center has to provide all the macroeconomic information and support data on revenue that will be transferred to the national on time for them to incorporate those data, those information, the budget allocation process. We can talk about basic cash accounting, basic structure of chart of account that will enable start an accounting and reporting standards at the subnational level, together with the and consolidated and harmonized with the national administration. And other more complex reforms could come at a later stage. So, for example, medium-term type of approach for budget formulation, expenditure formulation, it's something that perhaps can be leave to a second stage. Performance budgeting, accrual accounting, and other topics. To conclude, I would like to highlight one or two PFM areas where usually we see that are overlooked on rolling out PFM reforms to support fiscal decentralization. The first one is on monitoring risks that could stem from subnational governments, which we kind of group together with the fiscal policy formulation in the PFM cycle. But basically, we are talking about, for example, authorization for subnationals to borrow under what circumstances, if there are ceilings for that process, how the Ministry of Finance is taking, is overseeing those actions for subnationals. Usually there should be a unity within the Ministry of Finance that will oversee that process on a permanent basis, not only on that, but also on PPPs, SOEs, and other operations for the subnationals in order to try to minimize risks that could potentially materialize and affect the whole macro stability in the country. And the other one would be on reporting and accounting. Again, going back to the topic of enabling the government to collect, process, and consolidate financial data from all levels of government, provincials, locals, state level, and also the central administration. It's something that's very important, not only for transparency itself, but also for allowing a better control and auditing process, and also better analysis of the stance of the public finances and sustainability of the public finances on a more overarching perspective for the whole country. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.